Well, hello, welcome everyone to the third workshop session from the How I Built This series with our creators in residence. After Lee and Kat, who already did a demo, and Mark is here to demo how he built a tweet manager with Airtable. Mark is an Airtable database specialist, but also automations and nowadays also in AI. You probably have seen his experiments on Twitter. Yeah, Mark, I'm curious how you manage your tweets in Airtable. So great, you want to share this with us, how you build that, and yeah, share how we can build this ourselves too. That sounds really useful for myself. Yeah, I'm happy to watch today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's great to be here, and I really do appreciate everybody who's come along, especially those at the either end of the day, whether it's late or early. It's really humbling that you would turn up and listen to me talk about Airtable. Today we're going to look at building a Twitter tweet manager, so you can schedule tweets. If any of you use a tweet scheduler already, something like Hype Fury, where you can pre-populate a tweet and then set a time for it to be posted later on, so you can forget about it and you can do it a good period of time in advance, and just let it do its thing. This is a lightweight equivalent of that, which of course you don't have to pay for as alongside a tweet scheduler. If you've got an Airtable account, you can do this with a free account. It does have some automation in it, and that's available on a free account now, 100 automations a month. So, you know, it's about 3 or so tweets a day if you choose to use them all on this. I'll run through the base. It's fairly straightforward. I'll run through what each of these fields are doing, and alongside you can see this column has got some
you what?
views.
Okay.
And we'll run through what they do, and then we have an automation which handles all the scheduling for us, and I'll run through that. Yeah, then you can perhaps reproduce this yourself, or I could share a version of it without my Twitter account in it, and you can make it your own. So there's only one table in this Airtable base. If you're not familiar with Airtable, you can have multiple tables and associate data between them, but for this purpose we only need one. I've called it tweets. That's the name of it here. These views on the side are all representations of the same table. So it's the information in these views. When you click these, it only changes how it looks. It doesn't change the actual content of the table. And the table is made up of fields. Each of these fields hold different types of data, and you define the type of data when you create the field. And if you double click the top, you can see some information about the particular field. And this one is the data type is a single line text. These are the various types. This first column is always different. It's the primary column. It's what's used to associate this table with any other table. It's a common feature of databases. So you are limited on the type of data that you can put in here. This column, field column, I'll use that interchangeably. This is our content. So this is the actual copy that you put in your tweet, and we populate it in just by double clicking and typing away. The next column is an attachments column. I've called it image, which allows us to attach a image to our tweet. So you can just drag and drop an image into here, and then when we publish our tweet, it has an image attached to it automatically. This next field is a date field. I've called it schedule 4. So this is the date and time that we will schedule our tweet to be posted. There's various settings for that, but and I'll explain some of the nuances that we are limited to with Airtable in terms of the actual specific time that we can put in here and how it relates to what Airtable will do with our scheduled time. So that is just we just click that, we get a drop down, and we can pick a date and time from these options there. This column here is called it's a formula column, so we actually write a formula, and in this instance the formula is the initiator for our automation. So that sounds a bit complicated, but it's fairly straightforward. We're using a formula here, and it contains an if function, so it's a conditional, and the condition is whether this part, which is another function inside a function, whether this part is true or not. So what we're doing is we're comparing, we're using the is same function, which we'll go through in a minute, but the is same function takes two values, date values, the schedule for, which so that's our time that we want to schedule our tweet for, and this volatile function called now, which is the current time. It's the date and time, but it's specifically the time. So we're comparing when we want to schedule our tweet with the current time. And this is the limitation I was talking about. So we define a unit of hour. That's the smallest we can go with the comparison. So it's comparing the hour of our scheduled tweet and the hour of now. And then if they are true, so if the current time, the hour of the current time is the same as the hour of our scheduled tweet, it will display the word run. That's it. We've got no option for if it's not false, it will just be empty. So that's all we're doing with this formula, is we're identifying whether the time in our schedule column is the same as the current hour. If it is, then the word run will be displayed. And when we look at the automation, you'll see that when that word run is displayed, that will trigger our automation. So it's a volatile thing, but because here's the two references in the Airtable documentation. We're using this function here, is same. So that's comparing two dates, compares two dates up to a unit. The unit is hour. You can use day and week, I think, and then it's either true, which is the 1, or it's false, which is the 0, and it's comparing. So the date, the first date is when we want to schedule our tweet for, and the second date is the now, volatile now function. This is, if the Airtable base is open, it's updated every 15 minutes. So that's the volatility. Whereas you'd like it to be updated every second, that's got some overhead for Airtable. So they say it will be every 15 minutes. If the base is closed, so if you're not actively having this base open, it'll be every hour. So this is where our hour restriction comes in. So when we set a time to schedule it, it will be within an hour, some point within that hour. I think there's a convenience to that. So you don't tweet on the hour or on the quarter of the hour or on the half hour, which to people viewing your tweets can give them an indication that you are a bit cynical and pre-scheduling all your tweets. This will be a slightly random value, so it looks more natural. Then the next column is our published status. So we can decide, this is a single select column, so it will take one option from our list that we defined. And I've chosen either draft, schedule, or published. And we can define what we want to set our tweets to, and that forms part of the automation as well. So we can schedule it. By choosing schedule, and that will prime it for publishing. When it's published, the automation will automatically update this to say it's been published. And that's it gives us a good view of what, when we look at these views later, we can see the status of the ones that are published and filter for those only. This times tweeted allows you to know how many times you've tweeted the same tweet. It's quite a common thing to just recycle the same tweet over and over again. If you've got some good content, it might be only available to your followers for a certain period of time, and then your followers' feed gets filled with new tweets. So you're quite sensible to retweet good tweets. This formula here allows us to update this column, which is done by the automation as well. So it is just another formula column, and the formula is times tweeted. So it's like this column, and then we add 1 to it. So every time we run our automation, we will replace this value with this value. So there's an automatic virtuous update, and every time you change this value, this is one more above it. It automatically allows us to keep track of the times that we've tweeted that. For those of you who are wondering why there's curly brackets around this value here, it's because the value that I've got in the name for this column has got a space in it. So we group them together. If it wasn't a space in between times and the word tweeted, we could do without the curly brackets. So when you see that, that's all that means. It's a concatenating syntax to hold the actual value of the name of that column. This last column here, again, is a formula, and it's allowing us to check the characters that are in this content. Twitter allows you, I think it's 280 characters to put into a tweet. Again, we're using a if function here, so it's a conditional thing, and we're saying if the length, the len is another function, the length of the content column, so that's that column there, is greater than 280, we'll display the text tweet too long. Otherwise, we'll just display the length of the content of that column. So it's either too long or a number which represents how many characters are in this column. We've got a you can see this color is highlighted up here. This is a conditional coloring for if this column does go over the prescribed amount, we'll get a red notification. So this is a conditional where the character count contains too long. So if we intentionally make this too long, so we've got too much in it now. It's saying tweets too long, and we've got a red marker there, so so we can easily highlight what that is, and that will be helpful to us. Right, so that's basically the setup of the base, and we'll look at the automation here now. So it's switched on, it's live, and it's made up of 2 parts. The first part is the trigger, which I referred to just now when the word run is available in that column. We looked at this column here, the schedule for trigger column, and then when that is the conditions are met, these conditions down here, it will run the actions, the second part, which is the actions, and you can see that contains 2 actions. One is to post a tweet, and the other is to update our records. So let's break down the trigger first, and then we'll look at the actions. The trigger is configured on the left here. These are the conditions which will initiate the automation, and I'm saying when a record matches a condition. So there are other ways of doing it. You can do it on a cycle, or when a record goes into a particular view, or when a new record is entered. But we're choosing when it matches a particular condition. there's only one table, the tweets table. So if you have more, you can configure them there. But these are our conditions. So I've got 3 conditions that need to be true before the automation will run. And they are that word run is in there. So we know that the time is correct. The scheduled time and the now volatile time are in agreement with respect to the particular hour of the day. The published status is scheduled. So if you were just drafting a tweet and you didn't want it published, you can just leave the status here as draft, and that means this condition would be false and it wouldn't run. So that's a check for that. And then we'd also have a check for if the condition of the character count is too long, it won't run. So we're helping ourselves here by building these conditions into the automation. So we need to satisfy all these before this trigger will run. This stuff down here is about when you're building it and doing testing and picking records to test on. So we don't need to worry about that. So when those conditions are met, we will be into the actions. The first action is it's a native action. So you haven't got to do anything with this. If you add an action, you can see there's a list of them down here, all these different things. And the Airtable will include this Twitter action for us. And then again, like with the trigger, you can configure on the right hand side what you would be doing. So we're using the tweet action there. You can give it a description. I haven't done that yet, but if you've got a few things going on or the same actions happening, you can label them there and it shows up in the side here. This is where we connect our accounts. I've got it connected to one account there. If you wanted to add multiple accounts, you can. So you can pick different ones. When you click that, you get the OAuth connection here. So you need to put in your Twitter name and password. That way it knows that you're the authentic person to post to that account. So I've already done that with my account. So as far as Airtable's concerned, it's ready to post. In this message section, you can type some stuff in if you want, but we're going to use a dynamic input here. So that's our content column, and you use that with this blue button on the side here. We pick content. So that's fine. It knows which record because it's the record that's triggered this. The conditions on that record have been true. So it knows it's the content of that record to pass through into the into the tweet. Just below that is the attachments. So we're just using the same thing here in terms of configuring it. We're adding the image column, and that is it. So as far as the tweet composing, we're done there. But what we want to do is at the same time update our record so we know that the what's happened. We're getting some feedback. So this is the action type update record. So again, it's the same thing as the one before. We could do the Twitter one again if we wanted to, but we're using the update record action. Again, you could put a description in. I've chosen not to do that. The tweets table is the only one that's available to us here. And then the record ID is the one from the trigger. So you pick that here, and it's the ID there is what's available to us. So Airtable will update that record. You could update other records if you wanted to, but we're only concerned with the one that's been passed to us. We're going to change the status to published, and then we're going to populate the times tweeted field with the tweeted +1 field. So this is where I was saying we're going to update the +1. So we've now incremented that by 1 to know that it's been tweeted, and we're good to go. This stuff down here, again, it's about testing. So you can see that the automation is fairly lightweight and straightforward. There's not really a lot to do. It's very intuitive, and it just works well for us. Let's test it out. I've got my account here already. This is just an empty account, and you can see these two tweets are ones that I've done before. You can see on this one here, red, blue, green. If you hover over the posted time, you get the actual exact time. So that was 8:11 p.m. yesterday. If I have a look at when I scheduled that, it was 8:30. So it happened before I wanted it to happen because we're on this limited hour time. So somewhere in the background, Airtable did its volatile update of the now function, and then found out the hour were the same and then run it. And so that's what's happened there. You can see on this other one here as well, 6:53 yesterday was when the testing 1.2 was actually posted, and I scheduled it for 6:05. So there's quite a difference there. But as I was saying, it looks 8:11 p.m. and 6:53 p.m. They're not on the hour or on the quarter hour, on the half hour. So we do get a little bit of a benefit of looking a bit more natural. We'll try one now, and we'll say 100 days of no code is great. I won't put any images in. I will just pick the time. Obviously, it's the date to date. Obviously, the time's a bit different for me to you, but you can see that this volatile now has already identified that hour now is the same as the scheduled time now. So I only need to push schedule in here, and the automation is now running. It's in the background, it's doing its thing, it's highlighting these where it's changing them, and we change to published. If I go over to here and we have a look there, our tweet has been posted. There it is. So we're in business. It's working nicely for us, and obviously I could, in a real world situation, I would schedule for tomorrow, for the next day, or next week, next month, whenever you felt like doing it. Check that to schedule and then forget about it. So that's the essential nuts and bolts of it. I've got these views to run through, and then we can go on to some questions if anybody has any. So this all records is self-explanatory. It's got every single record. If we wanted to just have a view of what tweets are in draft mode, then I've enabled that by creating a view, which is easy enough to do down here. You push the plus sign next to the grid view, which is the sort of view that we want. That's what we're looking at here. And then you just say, you call it whatever you want. I've called it draft, and then choose to exclude choose to include only records where the published status is draft. We haven't got any right now, but if I did decide to do one in this view, it automatically gives us the draft status. So that's a handy little time saver for us there. I can schedule that now as well, and it won't run. You can see it here in the draft, in the all records. It won't run because it's not meeting that criteria of being scheduled. And so that's a nice way just to see what, if you have a load of records, it becomes more useful then. And you can go in and sort these if you wish by the particular column, and group them as well. It's a personal thing. You could, if you had other columns, say for topics, that you could group them by the topic or the any sort of value that was pertinent to the subject you're tweeting about. The next view is all the published ones, so same as the draft, but we're using the criteria of only tweets that are published, and that means that it's easy just to spot which are the high ones, which are the low ones, and then we can just switch this to schedule, and now that's going to run again. So we'll be in the background, that's happening, that's tweeting, and we'll be posting that easy enough to retweet. Well, it's not a retweet, but to repost it, and we'll see that in a second. If the volatile formula might not have updated, but we'll come back in a minute to see that done. This calendar view gives us a nice overview of what we've tweeted and when. So you can see if you are perhaps scheduling too much on one point or on another, or you're getting some better responses at certain periods and times, and you get an overview of what you've done. That's easy to do. You just pick a calendar view, like the grid view, and then you choose the scheduled for value there, and that's it. It handles it all for you. It's very straightforward, and it gives us great flexibility. Again, the records, all the same records, it's just presenting them slightly differently. So these are different records. This is a nice touch with the form view. I've basically made a view, so it's all the same records, but I've made a view, and it allows us to create our own form, so we can rapidly populate our table with tweets. If you bookmark this form here is available on one click. You click that bookmark, this form comes up, you populate your tweets. 1, 2, 3, attach a file if you so wished. You can schedule it again now, submit, and we're done. That is it. You know, so it's very quick to do that, and you know, you can just have that at your convenience. Even on your mobile device, you could have that as a bookmark. I have configured it to just repeat. You could submit another response, and you could repeat that and do it as many times as you wished. So I'm pretty much up together, I think. So if there's any sort of questions, or anybody's got any thoughts or ideas or anything, then I'll be happy to chat a bit more about it.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, go ahead to that.
That's so, it's really cool. More shiny things, but that's great. I have a few questions. I'll just do one. But where you said the tweet +1, would that count if you retweeted it on the platform, or would you have it recounts it if you do it via this? Yeah,
this is only a one-way sync. So you know, we're just posting tweets. We're not actually receiving any information back. So there's nothing stopping you manually overwriting these and you know, just putting any value in here. If you happen to do that, you can see that I'm changing this, and this next column is updating itself. I suppose if you wanted to get into it, you could do that, but I think that's probably quite a lot of work for what you could do if you just came in here and overwrote the number. So yeah, there's no information coming back from Twitter for that.
Okay, cool, thanks. And thank you, this is really, really great.
Thank you, you're welcome. Thank you.
Hey Mark, good to see you.
Hello, all right.
Yeah, thanks for the showcase. Yeah, my question was a bit similar to Juliet, but it's more about if it's possible to do. So say, for instance, that once you have published the tweet, you want to get the number of likes that tweet, you know, got on the platform. How would you do something like that? Is that something that you could do maybe through a script or maybe through Make? I'm guessing if you have like the URL of the tweet or something like that.
Yes, certainly. Yes, you can. Yeah. That is, I did think about including something like this, but the way I would do it would involve a script to connect to the Twitter API, and you invariably have to request the unique ID for a tweet to get the stats back for that tweet. So we'd have to know that in advance, and therefore it sort of makes this a bit redundant because we don't know what that is with this. But there's definitely scope for that. You could do that, and that would be amazing to know yourself on a convenient platform like this, which tweets are getting the engagement, which tweets are getting you likes and extra followers. So that would be a great extra feature to do this. For those of you that would be interested in it, you can, under the extensions here, you can add scripts, and it might be intimidating, but there's plenty of resources out there to help you just chuck a script in there, and then you configure it to your own account. And then Airtable will go and get stuff via APIs for you and manipulate data and repopulate it back into these columns. And you know, it's quite a powerful thing when you start involving a little bit of code. Obviously, you know, we're no coders, so it's probably a bit too much for our purposes. But yeah, there's so much potential with this tool when you start really going into the sort of corners and the edge cases. It's superbly powerful. But yeah.
But that's how you started, right? Sorry.
Yeah. I think you also mentioned Make already, Pablo. I think it can also be done with Zapier and Make to bring your tweets in here. Whenever the tweet from your account comes in, you can send it to Airtable, and maybe with a find action.
Yeah, I'm guessing through webhooks. I'm guessing that you'll get the data.
Yeah, it is possible, but I also like just before we started the recording, we talked about distractions when you are tweeting on Twitter itself. It's easy to get distracted by tweets from other people you see come by. So I like the simplicity of this, that you just focus on writing tweets, and yeah, I think that's a great advantage.
Yeah, I think both Zapier and Make have their own modules. So, you know, it would be a case of doing what we've done here and just configuring the connected account, which you can do here on the integrations. You have a similar thing in there to connect your Airtable to Make, and Make to Twitter, and then, you know, there'd be a way of doing that. But the limitations are whatever Airtable and Make have decided to include in those modules. So it's something well worth exploring. But yeah, that would be the route to go down rather than putting a script in. So yeah, that's it.
In the case of scripting, you use JS, is that right? No, JavaScript.
Sorry.
Oh, I think I'm gonna write in the chat.
I think he was asking if you use JavaScript for the scripting.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's all JavaScript. Yeah, it's they've got quite extensive support for scripting, and they've got their own SDK, if you like, their own sort of methods that you use to poll for information. So yeah, but it's all JavaScript. Yeah. This one doesn't seem to have run for some reason, so we'll see if we can't. So
Mark, for same thing, is it possible to put some kind of a messaging or some kind of a notification if for some reason this doesn't run, and it will send us a message or a mail?
Yeah, I reckon that's possible. You could probably add another automation to handle that, because you're not just limited to one automation. You can have as many as you like. Maybe when we push schedule, there's another column to sort of put a value in, and then we can have an automation that runs on the trigger can be on a schedule. So we can say every, I think 15 minutes is the 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes you can check for the conditions on some records, and then if if they meet the certain conditions, you can send yourself an email, or as is quite common, you know, a Slack message. So you can just post that in a Slack channel and have that handled natively for you. So yeah, definitely that you're on the money there. Just thinking about the wider scope of things that can be achieved within Airtable. It's very powerful. It does have limitations in terms of capacity. That I think it's 100,000 records on. I think it's been recently increased on the enterprise to about 250,000 records, but that does sound a lot. Probably acceptable for all the stuff we're going to be doing. But when you start going into enterprise stuff, you know that 250,000 records over a period of time can be reached quite easily. So you do have to get into archiving, you know, old records, and you know that's an extra headache. So I'm not sure why they have these limitations, but other than that, it's for us no coders, it's a superb tool to get on with because it's so flexible in terms of integrating with other things as a backend. If any of you used Softer, you'll be using Airtable to manage your data, and you know they chose it for a reason. So it's you know it's an excellent tool. I've used it in a commercial situation, and you know it holds up robustly, and it does have integrated notifications up here, and we can see in the automation at the top here we have our run history. So we've actually got a failure here, so you know you can just drill down through these. Every time that automation runs, you're given this run history, this status, and it's not like what we've done there. I think it's because we've done something. This one here posted it twice, so I don't think it's liked it. So you know, it's an opportunity inbuilt in Airtable to find out why things have gone wrong, and it's you know it's done without you having to do anything. It's excellent. So you know this allows us to see all the specifics of what's happened. If you are using a script as well, this produces all the output for the conditions that you include. So it's you know it's a superb tool for learning how.
Isn't it funny that like 2 years, nearly 2 years ago, when I think we kind of met in this community, Airtable didn't have these automations, and since then they've been shipping lots of stuff, and they have like the way they designed the automations experience, it's pretty similar to what Zapier does with the product. And that is, I think that is not coincidence, right? Because Zapier is probably the most beginner-friendly automation platform, and they wanted to leverage that mental model from other users so they can, you know, get familiar with the automations on Airtable at the same time. So it's cool how Airtable has evolved and now has these new like, I wouldn't call it rebranded, but they have more this marketing speech about building connected apps instead of, you know, spreadsheets with asteroids, which was the first one that I've heard. And then now it's about building connected apps with your data and having like a source of truth for all your data, basically.
Yeah.
Plus one. Oh, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Well, they're broadening the scope quite a lot. This interfaces is a relatively recent add-on, so you can basically have a front end for users and restrict what they can do and see. So you reduce the risk of introducing errors, and it allows you to have some functionality. It's not quite a front-facing app like you would hope with logins and things like that, but it's definitely incrementing and moving in that right direction. And along with the automations and you know the actual database itself, you are emerging is a fully sort of comprehensive solution to a lot of needs, especially internal. You know, if you're a business and you're wanting to automate stuff, or certainly just relieve pain for repetitive tasks. This is a great starting point, to make something that's niche and bespoke to your particular business, because let's face it, every business does things their own sort of way. I've got an Airtable base that goes and gets cryptocurrency values, and it shows what I've, in real time, shows what I've spent compared to what it's worth. Obviously not a lot at the minute, but I've got an invoice generator, so I just put in certain criteria, a PDF invoice is presented. So there's broad scope for using Airtable for all sorts of cases, and I really encourage you to sign up for a free account if you haven't already done so, and just try and find all the niche areas that you can exploit. Have a look at the extensions here, have a look at the automations and the interfaces, and it's really got some superb community and some superb some documentation, and the service from the customer support is second to none as well. They're very comprehensive and helpful. So I really encourage you to have a look at it.
Play with it. Yeah.
And if there's one thing you are missing from Airtable at this point, so if you could talk with the product team, what was the number one thing you would like them to add as soon as possible?
Well, yeah, I would like to see the sort of user account login front end, so you can actually with sort of privacy rules like they have in Bubble, you can show certain data to certain people. You can have that as a fully functioning app. So I don't doubt it's going to be at some point.
But I think interface is like it's starting with interfaces, because you can build custom interfaces for different stakeholders and keep your data private in case you need. So I think it's going towards that path, and you obviously have these other platforms that are built on top of Airtable, like Software, Stacker, and there's another one recently, WeWeb. I think it's like a platform for connecting any database and displaying on a nice front end. But yeah, Airtable is definitely I think copying some of these other products, and so they can have all of the features in their own platform without having to leave.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and the automations are really powerful. And one thing I still can't wrap my head around often is I used to use Excel and Sheets a lot, Google Sheets. And whenever now I export something from like a third tool, like a MailerLite or name it, and I want to import it in Airtable to connect with an existing base. In Google Sheets and in Excel, you always have this VLOOKUP, which really worked easy to connect data, but in Airtable you only can use this primary fields, your first columns, basically, to link. And
the link records.
So, for example, if I got a new from MailerLite, which starts with the email address, and in my accounts or in my contacts, the email address is in the third column, in the third field. In Google Sheets, it was really easy to just connect this with the VLOOKUP, but now in Airtable, it cost me way more time. So that's the one thing I struggle with. Maybe you have a trick for that.
Yeah, when you're importing a CSV, I'm just clicking add or import here. It will, I haven't got anything to import here, but it will ask you for if you want it to automatically map the columns for you, and decline that selection because it doesn't do a very good job. And then when you do that, you can manually configure which column gets mapped to which column. So it's there, and if you want the email to be in the primary column, you can manually do that. Don't let Airtable do it for you, because it does, in my experience, quite a bad job to map those fields for you. But a real common myth is that these are sort of one and the same thing, but spreadsheets and databases should not be treated as equivalents. The main thing you can do with a spreadsheet is you can vary the value within a field. In Google Sheets or in Excel, you could put a number, a text, a date, anything you wanted in this column. And there's no way of doing that in a database. You must be consistent with your data, and that's obviously got pros and cons. In Airtable, it's less vulnerable to sort of making mistakes, but you are limited on what you can do here. In Excel, it's a lot more flexible. You can just, like I said, mix and match what you want in a particular column. But you must be mindful that we are talking about a legitimate database here, not a spreadsheet. They're two different things. And if you are looking to move data over into a database, then I'd suggest preparing it as best you can in that fashion in Excel or in Google Sheets. So make sure you got consistent data in each of the columns, and even just move the column in Excel to the first column, and so that's the primary column that this is going to interpret, and it should sort of bring it in for you. But that is my tip. If you're going to bring in an Excel sheet or a CSV, when you connect the file, it'll ask you to map the columns. You do it manually. Don't do it. Don't let it do it automatically, and you should be okay.
All right. Thanks. I will look into this. And it's also great you mentioned that they are not equivalent, because in the perception, at least in my perception, I just consider them as equivalents.
Yeah.
But that's basically not it. So great to know. Yeah, I love Airtable and I love the automations, and I think this was a great showcase, great demo. But what's possible, and like it sounds like a simple thing if you just look at this only the first table, but the automations, it's really powerful. So yeah, thanks Mark for showing us around.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, you're absolutely on the money there. The automations now have conditional automation, so they're extending that. So there's so much more to come, but it's already very powerful. So yeah, it's we haven't even scratched the surface really with this. But I can make this base shareable if anybody wants to have a copy and then set it up for themselves, and then start using it to automate their tweets. I can share that in the Slack, and then we should be should be able to either maybe reproduce it yourself so you can learn how to build it, or just take it and run with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and if you are on a Slack, you can always ask at Mark to ask also for the link of this shared record. So if you watch the recording afterwards, you can always reach out to Mark. Yeah, great. You also mentioned the crypto trackers. I'm sure Juliet will also be interested in that, Mark. So that's great. Unless anyone has any final questions about this tweet manager or suggestions.
I think we need to do more serious for Airtable products or use cases. I think this was a great first one, but I think with Airtable the possibilities are endless. So if anyone ends up building something, please share it with the community so we can learn from it. And because databases, they can be designed, so there are certain best practices for designing databases, but they're still pretty flexible to the things that you can do with them. So it'd be great to see how you use them in your own projects. And yeah, that's it, I think.
Yeah, it could be a whole series in itself. Yeah, interesting. Yeah,
it's very inspiring to see real life examples. So I agree.
All right. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks everyone for watching the recording, and thanks again, Mark. This was great. So next week on Wednesday we have our fourth How I Built This session. This is with Prepshot, a data wizard, automation wizard. He will show how he automatically curates and generates newsletters with his own tool Crafter. Very inspiring. So I would like to invite you all again next Wednesday, same time, 7 p.m. London time, to learn something new again. And in the meantime, have fun practicing and tweeting. All right, thanks for watching.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
You.